Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 206, Me Gusta QESo, recorded on Friday, July 8th, 2022. From Zenatta Consulting, I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
Well, before we do, Tyler, it's our 4-year anniversary. Wow, Freddie, nice
Nightmare
animation.
fuel. That is absolute nightmare fuel, is what that is.
Oh man, that needs to go up on the website. That's just classic right there. Yeah, so hey, 4 years ago on actually July 11th, we're 3 days away from it, in 2017, I guess. Is that correct? 2018? 2018? Yes, 2018. We kicked off with the very first CRM Zen Show. So we want to thank everybody for hanging with us for 4 years. And that animation is giving me nightmares. All right, with that, let's get right on into the events. Okay, so over on events, we have got the Zoho user groups. They're going all month long, July 12th, running through August 11th for the USA. So you can check those out. We've got the link on the website. Also, coming up here on July 13th, Zoho is doing the State of Business Intelligence, which should be a rather interesting webinar. That's going to be with Zoho Analytics. And then we are doing our Zoho Analytics full BI webinar on July 19th at 10 a.m. Actually, is that going to be you and Greg, Tyler, doing that one?
I think it's going to be me and Greg this time around.
Yeah, and I'm going to add, I don't know, I might drop in for color commentary. Maybe I'll just be in the chat room,
There you go.
and chime in from there. And also Zoho is doing one on the same exact day. A half an hour later, they're doing an overview of Zoho people. And then in August, Tyler, we are going to do the full bundle-roo, full review of all Zoho bundles, why you need them, why you don't. So you can check that out as well. And as always, if you head over to zenatta.com/events, you can keep up with all of the latest events that are going on in the world of Zoho. And with that, let's get right on into the news. All right, we will start with the Zoho Books product update. We have no PSA. Last week, we ended the PSA alerts on Zoho Books saying it was all fixed, it's done, it's great, it's ready to go. Kind of, sort of, not so much. They did complete the Yodels API upgrade to the platform. It's actually really slick. And if you are setting up a lot of it's kind of a hodgepodge on how this update was rolled out. For some people, it seems to have worked fine. For others, not so much. I can tell you personally, I run my personal books through Zoho Books, and it did crazy things. So, I've got 2 credit cards with Chase. One is a Marriott credit card, and the other one is an Amazon credit card. So, they both have their purposes and their perks. Well, when I resync the feeds, because Chase was one that was broken, all my Amazon feeds come into my Marriott credit card, and all my Marriott feeds come into my Amazon credit card. So I'm like, okay, not the end of the world. I'll just rename them because I reconciled the transactions. Do you really care?
Yep.
But then every single workflow automation's gone. Every single transaction rule. So because
you're auto-categorizing certain things from certain cards, right? Because you know how you're using them. So you'd have to rebuild all of those. So
yes,
yes,
and those
headed
2
in the right
cards have to
direction,
be
but yeah, a little bit of
yeah.
a clunky landing so far.
Yes, it's a little rough. There's been some problems. I imagine all of it will be worked out. There are some really nice things to it. If you were some of the banks who were allowing the old authentication method to keep going, required 2-factor. So, in Zoho, in order to refresh your bank feeds, you'd have to go in, put your phone number in. It would send you a text to your phone. You'd have to put that in every single time you wanted to refresh your bank feed. That's gone now. It just automatically pulls in the bank feeds because it's got a much more secure method of authentication. So, That's good. It's, I think we're a week in, so hopefully, give it another couple weeks, and all the kinks will be worked out. It has caused a lot of consternation. This whole thing happened at the same exact time that Australia's year end was occurring. So I guess in Australia they wrap up their years on June 30th, and not so good for them.
Unfortunate timing. Yeah, that is unfortunate timing. I do know though, this is probably the highest priority thing the books team is working on right now. It's definitely all hands on deck. So they're going to be ideally getting any of these odds and ends tidied up here ASAP because they know it's causing a little bit of pain and suffering. So
Just a
we'll
little. And they're a good
yeah,
team.
a
We
little
love
bit.
everybody on the finance team. Love everybody. Shout out to the US finance team as well. Great guys. And anyway, everybody will get through this. Hey, you can now create custom tabs in the client portal. If you didn't know, inside of the entire finance suite, whether it's books or the invoices or subscriptions, you can have a client portal. And now you can actually have a custom tab in the client portal. So if you wanted to show something a little different there, you can do that, which is rather nice. And you can reset pushed transactions in the India edition, which is there you go. So you can, on the India edition, you can now reset those push transactions. And now you can create self-billed invoices on the global edition. This is, again, another portal thing. So on the portal, if you turn this on, someone can go in and actually generate their own invoice if they decide
Very
that
cool.
they wish to do such. Yeah, which is nice. All righty, and moving on with the news. Couple CRM related things right now. This is pretty cool, Tyler. You can now have
Awesome.
condition-based data sharing rules in the CRM. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, this is a huge value add. So in essence, the CRM data sharing is primarily based on the role hierarchy that you've set up inside of the kind of settings and security control, where a salesperson only sees their records, and a sales manager sees the records of any salespeople under them. You can also do some like custom role to role data sharing rules. So like maybe every sales engineer can see every record owned by the salespeople, right? If you kind of need some visibility that way. But a common issue is that, maybe a deal should become visible to a certain person based on certain criteria, or a certain role, I should say. So if a deal has a checkbox checked that says requires sales engineers, you might want to automatically share just that one record to that particular role or group. And so now you can do that using the data sharing settings. So super useful. Like if we see here the screenshot, if the product is an air purifier and the category is suggestions, this would be looking at like a case record. Then share it over to the R&D team automatically. Huge value with this. Really, like one of the biggest things with CRM is trying to make sure that people are not seeing records that they don't need to see, both for privacy reasons and for usability. If someone's on your R&D team and they open up the case section of your CRM and they see everything, hundreds and hundreds of cases, even ones that don't matter to them, that can be kind of an issue, right? It's going to make them kind of fog out, right? And just go to a different page and do something else. So now in this case, you're basically able to set up some custom criteria and share things dynamically. This is one that I've needed in the past, right? I'm very happy that they added this. It's one that I'd imagine a lot of users are going to want to jump on and start to take a look at.
Yeah, this has always been a big problem. Especially, you made the point of making sure users can't see what they're not supposed to be. It's also allowing them to see what they're supposed to see in so many cases. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, I want them to be able to have access to these records. So um, super, super nice. And the fact you can set the permissions on it as well, it's just
Yep.
yeah, it's great. And then they had some nice little UI enhancements. So kind of clean there. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see what they've done there. So, but major update, something we've needed in the CRM for an extremely long time. So, and then also now in the CRM, I like this a lot. You can now, within the CRM, within the finance, whether you're in invoices or quotes or sales orders, you actually can look up the deal that's potentially associated with those. Used to be you had to head over to books for that. Yeah. And now,
Yeah,
or is
and this
this
is for
the
the
standard
CRM
CRM?
invoices.
The
Yeah,
CRM
this is for the
modules, isn't it?
CRM native
Yeah,
invoices. Honestly, this
yeah.
is like a fix of an oversight. because they already
Yeah.
had it on the quote and the sales order, and then you would convert it from a sales order to an invoice and it wouldn't show up on the deal. So what you would always do is just add a custom field to the invoice, right? And kind of set it up to convert that way. But yeah, this is nice to have. It's a need to have, honestly, because a lot of invoices that you're making in the CRM are for a specific deal. So good
Yes.
on them for adding it, and it should roll itself over quite nicely. And I do want to highlight as well, if we scroll up just a little bit here for the existing users, I'm pretty sure they give you a way to, if you had added a custom deal lookup field, to kind of roll it into this default one. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so if you look there for users who manually set up a custom deal lookup, we provide an option to map the existing stuff from sales orders and quotes to your custom field. So you don't have to like move all your data to the system standard one. You can just keep using your custom one and map over those lookups when you convert a sales order to an invoice. So nice
Nice.
to have. I mean, there were just custom workarounds for this before, but for something like this, you really shouldn't need a script running, right? That's going to go and pull a deal lookup into an invoice. Like it should just convert. So good on the team there for adding that.
All right. And then moving on in Zoho projects, the team there has
Oh, we got a
decided to set
question
up a
real quick here from the chat. I think on the, if you want to pull that back up, Freddie,
yeah.
we can catch it while we're on the topic. So this is about the data sharing rules. Todd asked a question. Does it give you ability to grant access to users when they're logging into the portal? I don't believe so. I could double check it for you and maybe post it in the Club Zen, but I think this is just related to the actual users of your CRM, not related to users of the client portal.
That would be interesting, though. Take a note on that, Zoho. That would be
Yeah.
kind of nice. Oh, we're just going to do questions in the middle of the show now. Wow. All right. So Jose asks, is the finance module from CRM sync to books? If you wish it to be, yes. So you
Generally, we
can
replace it
do that.
though. Yeah, generally we'll
Yes.
replace it. Sometimes if you need a certain bit of functionality from the CRM version, maybe you really like the way that the quote document looks when you make it from CRM. You might do a quote there and then, you write a little bit of code for a magic button, right? That kind of converts that quote to a book sales order. But oftentimes you kind of just replace the CRM ones with the ones from Zoho Books because they're more functional anyways. And really that's the tool you should use to do any of those transactional orders.
When you do the synchronization and you're actually, or the integration, when you're integrating the finance suite or Zoho Books into CRM, it asks you if you want to hide the legacy CRM modules. So you have that option to kind of hide them and put them away. Like Tyler, like you said, Tyler, sometimes people want to keep them around, but mostly not the case. All right, moving on with the news here. Zoho projects team has decided to set up a community over on LinkedIn. So
Very cool.
if you don't like the community in the community, then go over to the community over on LinkedIn and you can join that. So for all the projects people, there'll be a whole nother LinkedIn community going. Check it out.
Very nice.
Yes, and moving right along here, Zoho Sales IQ allows you to now keep track of your website visitors and chats and manage them with tags. So Sales IQ, if you don't know, it is a application that wears many hats. One of those hats is it does chat, and now you have the ability to tag chats, tag users, tag, you can just tag away. If you're looking at the interface here, they've done a lot on the conversational tags, and then you can set up custom views based around those tags. So, I mean, a lot of nice purposes here. You're talking to somebody and they're giving an example here of a delivery issue. So if you're tagging it with that, you can then go through search all the conversations where maybe that was an issue. I can see a lot of use cases for this, Tyler,
Yeah, it's
especially if
pretty
you're
nice. I
very
mean,
active.
yeah, I think a lot of these tags in like an ideal world, right, should kind of get auto assigned. But that relies on you having it connected to your CRM. I'm just talking to someone on our team earlier today, kind of around that same topic. So yeah, these are really cool, right? So, if you're talking to someone, they have an order issue, you can just go ahead and manually apply the tag. Some of the ones they highlight up at the top in the little image, I think are kind of harder to achieve based on how the system works right now. So if we go all the way up, they say there's tags. You might want to tag them as like an MQL, right? Based on some
Right.
campaigns data or tag them as an ongoing deal, but there's really not a good mechanism to de-anonymize Sales IQ visitors without having them already have chatted. You can't really do it with like a form or really anything in that vein. So definitely nice to have, but some of these ones that they're kind of advertising up here is, your mileage may vary if you try to get those actually assigned in any automatic way.
All right, and then moving on, you can now sign your documents with qualified electronic signatures, QES. That's where we got the title of the show. A little callback there if you're looking for that. So basically, they have had this qualified electronic signatures in other versions, and now they've rolled it out completely into the EU. So if you are in the EU, you now have this. This is face-to-face identity verification of the signer, and it's the highest level of compliance with EU laws. Every country has different rules and regulations as to what they accept as an electronic signature. Companies have different rules and regulations. Even in the United States, you'll find real estate and loan documents. There's all sorts of different rules as to around what qualifies as a valid electronic signature. This is one of the highest levels that you can do, and so they have rolled that out over in the EU now. So good on the Zoho Sign team. And moving on here with the news, Tyler, in Zoho subscriptions, they did a lot, and this one's pretty kind of cool. You now have customer level consolidation. They've opened up early access for that. So if I'm reading this right, Tyler, I have 4 or 5 subscriptions. I can now roll them up into a consolidated bill.
That's what it seems to be, right? So if you had a couple different services going, you can kind of align their payment cycles and just make one payment per month, and actually just send them one invoice per month. So that's
Mhm.
pretty nice. If you do have like, not everyone has subscriptions set up, or it makes sense for a customer to have more than one. But if you are kind of creating multiple different product sets and groups where it's likely that they could actually sign up for multiple things, it's definitely a really nice one to have. A lot of people do prefer that. It's one of the things that Zoho does well, is that you don't have these 10 different software subscriptions running. It's all kind of managed under one, and you can kind of see the bulk of everything you're paying a lot more easily. And then interesting one here as well is price lists for the
Price lists.
subscriptions. So it looks, yeah, essentially like you're able to set up certain price lists either for regions or kind of seasonal, like date-based pricing. So pretty interesting. I think like a big application of this would be if you're doing business in, Canada, US, Mexico, you might want to offer different prices based on where you're at, the relevant currency. So a cool one to have. Again, one that I would imagine Zoho does internally. So they're like, hey, we already do that. Let's go ahead and add it to um, Zoho subscriptions.
And if you're wondering how that works, you basically would associate your products to a price list, and then you're going to get a separate hosting page or embedded widget for that specific price list. So you don't have to create a whole different set of products at a whole different set of pricing. You can just apply a price list to them. So pretty nice. And then again, since it's part of the finance suite, kind of talked about this already, you now get custom tabs over in the portal for Zoho subscriptions. So
Very nice.
very, very cool. Yeah. All right. Well, moving on with the news here. We're blitzing through it. Zoho dropped their community digest. This is something that they put out once a month. This is their June 22. They kind of do it. They wrap up everything that happened in the month of June in the CRM. So it's the CRM Community Digest. And we just like to point this out. We link to it in our newsletter and on the website. If you go to the show notes, and you can kind of check out everything that happened. I kind of went through this. I think we covered all of this during
I
the
think I
last
think the only one
last month.
I think the only one there that we didn't cover is actually up at the top. It's the
Okay.
CRM segmentation. It's actually pretty cool. So in essence, what they're doing with the new segmentation is, you can kind of group segments based on a concept called RFQ, I think it's called, or RFM. So recency, frequency, and mode. And so essentially, they're letting you create segments in CRM based on their order history and order volume in Zoho Finance. And it's just a really cool implementation that they did, because it's kind of tying those applications together in a really interesting way. So that you could actually say, okay, let's have our sales reps target accounts that meet certain RFM criteria based on their real order history, without having to like write any custom code where you're updating these every time an order comes in, or doing anything crazy that way. So it's actually really cool. And I like it as a use case for kind of the network benefits of having a lot of apps in one ecosystem where like you're in CRM, but you can just natively use this finance data to create these different segments. So it's a pretty slick
Absolutely.
one. We may have talked about it on the show, but I don't think we did.
No, it was
Um,
18 days ago, so it would have been 3 shows ago. I'm pretty sure we missed this one.
yeah,
So, very, very
just a
nice.
nice little update they've added.
And also in the digest, if you scroll down, they've got the MVPs, and that basically their whole group of people that live in these Zoho communities. They do absolutely amazing work keeping things going. Jeremy Nagel has done he writes some great applications. We've talked about him before. He's in here as well. And they talk about how Kevin shares how to create workflow. At least I have a feeling that's got to be Kevin Flynn. I'm just saying. So anyway, shout out to everybody who participates in these community, helps with the CRM community, and they do a really nice job of kind of pulling some highlights out. So shout out to the guys who put this digest together as well. All right, and moving on with the news, Zoho Backstage kind of did a review of what they did last month as well, and we did talk about these. Some nice changes around managing one-on-one meeting requests. So if you're not familiar with Backstage, it is their total events management tool. And so in an event, you will have various maybe landing pages. You've got virtual events. You've got face-to-face events. If you're doing a virtual event, maybe people are allowed to book one-on-one meetings with you. In the past, there were some problems where you really couldn't accept or reject. They fixed that. Made some minor changes to some microsites, time and dates. It's just a lot of neat little cleanups. Kind of a super nice one here is you can now attach the calendar invite in scheduled emails. Previously, you could only do this in automated emails. You can now do it in scheduled emails, and they've cleaned some things up. So Backstage team always does a really nice job keeping things up to date. Kind of a slow month in June for them, but they keep it rolling. So good job, Backstage team. And moving right along, Tyler, one of our favorite applications, Zoho Cliq. This is the June roundup. I actually think we did miss a couple of these, or they probably never even released them. But anything jumping out at you here?
Yeah, so I guess little ones, sorting channels in alphabetical order. I wouldn't want to do that, but I guess it's cool that you can nonetheless. I like to sort them in kind of my own little way that almost like priority based. Multi-account support in iOS. So if you do have multiple Cliq accounts, you can kind of swap between them just natively within the iOS app. So again, kind of like minor updates there, nothing too
Yeah.
crazy. Do not disturb for iOS. That's a big one. You could already kind of turn it on and off in your browser and it would apply, but now you can adjust the settings on the mobile phone. One of my favorite things about Zoho Cliq. Um,
Yeah.
Editing
And you can now,
images on the go. That's an interesting one. So I guess if you're working an image, you're taking it from within Cliq, you can kind of crop it and edit it there just using the kind of photo editor that comes with the iPhone. And
yeah,
then some better file previews as well. So
yeah, they've
nothing
done a nice.
transformative, but they're always working on this application. It's a core one in terms of Zoho's kind of product set.
Yeah. And I think if you really want to, a couple of months ago, or was it a month or so ago, they allowed you to create folders inside of Click here. So this whole alphabetized thing, that's neat. Create folders. It's just changed everything inside Click right now. It's really a much, much, much better way to go. All right, Tyler, that's going to wrap up with the news. So with that, let's get to the implementation of the week.
Alrighty, so this is a implementation that we did on the books inventory side. It's actually leveraging something new that they added to Zoho Books. We covered it maybe a month and a half ago or so. Essentially, what they've added is the ability to do sales order cycle management inside of Zoho Books. So it's kind of like a workflow editor, right? Where you can automate actions with sales orders without having to write code. So an example would be something like when a sales order gets confirmed, automatically make an invoice for it or automatically make a package for it. And the only downside is that, by default, if you're creating an order not manually, so let's say you tied it into WooCommerce or you've tied it into, some third-party system that's hitting the Zoho Books API and creating those sales orders, the sales order cycle management will not trigger. right? So it's actually by default turned off when you're making things via an API. And so in this implementation, Greg kind of dug in, did a bunch of testing, reviewed the documents, which I guess were a little sparse on the topic so far, and basically figured out that there is, in fact, a trigger that you can add when you are making an API call to actually kick off these actions, right? And so you might ask, okay, well, that's cool, but why wouldn't you just write a bunch of code to do these anyways and not use the sales order cycle management? The big thing is that it doesn't rely on code to do it. So a normal user of the system that might not be a Deluge expert could actually set up the sales order cycle management or make any adjustments to it without having to go into a big code editor and tweak it there. So it's kind of a very specific implementation, but it does have a lot of use cases. Like we talked about earlier, actually, with the Jose's question is, imagine you're using the CRM module for quotes, and then you want to automatically create a sales order when that quote is confirmed. If you have sales order cycle management turned on and you do that without including some of these triggers, it won't do the same actions that you would expect it to. So it's basically just a way to turn on the trigger for sales order cycle management via API. Might be a good one for our code share at some point, just to kind of drop it in there so that people have access to it. Because it's really just something you're going to bolt on to whatever code you already have that's making these sales orders.
Very nice. I'm trying to think what client we did that for, Tyler, but good
Could be a lot.
stuff.
We find ourselves tinkering into books and inventory pretty often nowadays.
I know. Very, very, very nice. All right, guys. And with that, let us move over to the code share of the week. And you find the code share over on Club Zenatta, and Greg has one here on Null Checks. And before he actually wrote an entire thing on isNull, but basically it seems that Zoho Deluge considers that basically if you have a list, it counts the list as something and doesn't consider it as a null. So you can use the isEmpty function, but that can cause some problems as well. So if you really kind of want to suss this out, you need to use the isBlank function. I guess there's different uses for the three of these, and he kind of delineates whether it'll return a true or false at the end based on what you're using here. So not just one simple solution for everything, is there?
No, there definitely is not. This is a super useful one. isNull, isEmpty, and isBlank are core elements of error proofing your code. But if you don't use them on the correct type of data, then you're actually adding errors to the code. So this is just a quick write-up, basically delineating when you should use each of these options based on the scenario or based on what type of data you're working with. This is one that when I first started using Deluge, the list isNull not working the same as like a string isNull confounded me for many and many days when I was first trying to figure that out. So definitely a useful write-up, basically just defining what's the case where you would use each of these and how to prevent introducing error as you're trying to limit error.
All right. And if you haven't, head over to club.zenatta.com and join our community. We have discussion, we've got general discussion groups. We've got this code share forum. We have the Q&A. We're about to do Q&A here in a few minutes. Most of the Q&A from this week actually came from people writing questions to us over on Club Zenatta. And then we also keep track of all the general news that's being posted in the world of Zoho. So like all the stories we talk about today, others that we decide we're not going to cover on the show, a lot of them end up over here in the Zoho news forum. So you can take a look at that as well. A lot of great stuff. Get a lot of active members. Really happy with the way things are going over here. This is starting to turn into an extremely nice community. What are we, 6 months in now? Something like that. So starting to build a great community over here. So I want to thank everybody who's been supporting Club Zenatta. And if you're not there yet, check it out. I think you will like it. And with that, Tyler, let's head on over to the read of the week. We have a monster read from HubSpot. This is their HubSpot 2022 video marketing report. And this is a data from over 500 video marketers. It is a 24-minute read. Yes, it's a half an hour. Sit down, get a cup of coffee or 2 cups of coffee, depending on how fast you drink your coffee, and kind of dive through this. But this breaks down video marketing, what's working, what's not working. Of course, it varies depending on if you're B2C or if you are B2B. But there is just so much data here. It's really funny when one I found interesting, and I'm going to have to scroll down here is, what is the top video marketing channel? And YouTube actually did not end up as number one. It's number one from where is this? I think it was Instagram. There it was. So Instagram is currently the best social media channel for sharing videos. But YouTube is number two, even though 70% of all video marketers leverage it. So, but again, I think it depends on what your product is and what your service is. And if you're looking for long tail uh, video content or quick hit video content, quick ad content, there's so many different things you have to look at when putting out video content, and this does a very nice job of breaking down the different elements, where you can do it, how you should do it. If it's anyway, it goes on and on and on. It's a great read with a lot of really good data. And I tell you, we look all over the place for great reads, and this HubSpot blog. I mean, man, they don't publish. These are not trivial little pieces of writing that are out there. So anyway, worth checking out. Tyler, any thoughts on this? I don't know if you had a chance to look at it or
I
not.
think the big thing, and you kind of mentioned it as well, is like, take the learnings and the data from here, but make sure you color it with an understanding of your own business, right? If you're selling professional services like us, you'd have to think, is Instagram where people are going to look for that question, right? If someone wants to understand best practices in CRM, are they going to search that in YouTube or are they going to search that in Instagram, right? And so, but if you're making consumer products, shoes, right, jewelry, anything that's like pet products, right, like Instagram, Facebook, social media, those are going to be hugely impactful. I think YouTube is probably the default. You should, in my opinion, probably always be using YouTube in terms of any video content that you're creating, just because it's the second biggest search engine behind Google and it shows up in so many Google searches. I don't know if you've noticed lately, Brett, I almost can't use Google on my phone anymore because when you search, all you see are YouTube videos. And if I'm trying to find something to read, like a product review, and I don't want to watch a video, you have to
Right.
search it on your PC or you're just going to get nothing but product listings and YouTube videos. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is bizarre. It's funny. I was actually doing that this morning. I listened to a podcast with Matt Taibbi called Useful Idiots, and he hasn't been on for a long time on his own podcast. And so I kind of did a search for where's Matt Taibbi on Useful Idiots, and it gave me 3 videos talking about why he's not on the show. And I just wanted an article, and I couldn't find an article. So I was
Yeah,
like,
I know.
actually had to watch.
It was like a week or two ago. What was I researching? Maybe like couches or just some random thing. And I was on my phone on my couch, and yeah, I couldn't find one single article on my Google search. So I had to pull up my laptop, and then when I search that way, everything that shows up is articles. So
Yeah.
definitely something to consider is that Google and YouTube are obviously, owned by the same company, and if you're searching something on your phone, they're going to push you towards YouTube pretty heavily.
Yeah.
So something to keep in mind with really any content marketing.
But if you are doing video content and people are searching for video content, again, YouTube is a big one just because of the way it recommends videos and it pushes them forward. So, anyway, great read here. Check it out. And hopefully you will find it useful. Now, let's head over and see what's new over at Zenatta. All right, we have a nice blog this week, 6 features to look for in a website hosting provider. We have definitely spent a lot of time looking at various hosting providers and moving around. So I think this is from a lot of personal pain and suffering that the web team has put together here, but a nice little article on what to do when looking for a web provider. We currently use Liquid Web for almost all of our stuff. I'm really happy with these guys. You know, when you call them, they actually answer the phone. I mean, it's
Which
just
is
such a
not a
rare
given
thing.
when it comes to web hosts. It is not a given that they will ever answer the phone when you call them. It seems like that should be the default, but it really is not. No matter how big of a problem you're having, they're probably not going to answer. But with Liquid Web,
Yeah.
they're always super responsive. And I haven't seen Flywheel before. I guess that's one that the team found. Looks kind of just like a super simple, easy option if you don't need anything crazy and you're just kind of looking to really quickly and easily stand up a WordPress site. So
Yeah. I
one
never
to
heard
take
of
a
that
look
one
at as
either.
well.
So who knows? But it's good there. Also, as always, if you head over to our resource library, we are always updating articles, blogs, PDFs, anything we can potentially find on all of the various applications. So if you click into any application, you can find all our videos and all our articles on that application. We also let you know what we think of the applications currently in this state. I'm still waiting, Tyler. We've been talking about marketing automation to move from the not quite yet to just jump all the way up to yes. I know it's going to happen. It's going to happen this year. We just need that new version to be released. So hopefully that will happen soon. All right. With that, let's move on to our app of the week. So, first of all, before we get into this app of the week, I need to make a request to all the fans of the CRM Zen Show. If you have a particularly cool application, send it to us. Go over to Club Zen, say, I love this application. Tell us why. We would love to feature it on the show because we are at episode 205. We have run out of applications. It's getting harder every single week to find a new application that's pretty cool. This one is great. If you use Loom, we are big users of Loom. This was found by our marketing team, and it's called Awesome Screenshot, and it basically is a Loom. It does screenshots and recording and sharing. And it's exactly the same price as Loom. We did a price comparison. There's just no difference. They're charging the same exact price. If you go on the team edition, $8 per user per month. So I can't tell you if there's something that differentiates these two. If there's someone that's using this awesome screenshot, let us know. Never used it, but it looks exceptionally good. So maybe something worth checking out there. And it's got a lot of users. If you go over to the Chrome store, this isn't showing up right now here, but over 2 million plus users and 24,738 almost all 5-star reviews. So looks like a pretty
Nice.
cool application. Awesome screenshot over in the Chrome store. So if you're using Chrome, check it out. There you go. And with that, let's get into our tip of the week. And our tip of the weeks always reside over on our YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/Zenatta. Please subscribe if you haven't. We would love for you to get reminders on all of our content. We post 2 to 3 pieces of content every single week. And this week's a little bit of a throwback. This is a projects time tracking and how to do time tracking in Zoho projects. And this is actually an excerpt from a webinar we did earlier in the year. So this is me rambling on about time tracking inside of Zoho projects. So it's a quick little video, 3 minutes. We kind of cover how to do it, what it works. So you can check that out over there as well. If I look at our YouTube channel here, let me take a quick look here. Where are we at, Tyler? On a 5,450 subscribers. So we're getting close. So maybe by the end of the month we'll hit 6,000. Getting close there. So please continue to support us. We really appreciate all the support that you guys give us. And with that, Tyler, it's time to move on to our question and answers. I don't know if we have any answers today, but I think we do. So, Dirk, after watching books, how to set up estimates for digital signatures in Zoho Books, asked, how can I change the email address to a different email address when my account was created? Dirk, it's not where you think you would find it, but if you go to settings, organizational settings, it's going to be on that very first general tab page right there. And you can go ahead and you can set up all of your email settings there. It's kind of in the middle of the page,
Yeah, it's kind
underneath
of
like
odd.
organizational
It'll be like
settings.
sender preferences or sender insights there, and you can customize your addresses
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, you can customize them all right there. All right. And then after watching the Zoho Recruit 2021, we have the question, how do I conduct keyword searches of resumes on Zoho Recruit? I did a little test on this morning, and if you just go in the general search bar, I did it. I did it under candidates and under the general search, and I actually went in and I found some key phrases inside some resumes that weren't there, and I searched it, and it is indexing the resumes. And if you type that search in, it will come up, and you can basically rejected candidates, accepted candidates. It's all of there. So just the general search bar is really what you're going to need to look at. Okay, and then Monique Van Eck, after watching our creating a webhook with Zoho Flow, says, thanks for the tutorial. A question. I'd like to use Zoho Flow to catch the form submission data from our WordPress website into Zoho CRM, and in some cases, trigger an email drip campaign. Is the flow then almost similar? How would you integrate the campaigns part? Example, someone fills out a form to request a demo. Tyler?
Yeah, so a couple options. What I would do is I wouldn't integrate campaigns via Zoho Flow. What I would advise that you do, especially with the new campaign sync from CRM being instant, is drop them into CRM as you're doing now. Maybe apply a lead source, or if you're going to have people submitting multiple forms over time, you could create like an inquiries module, right? And actually drop it there so that you could track like these multiple interests or form submissions that a lead or contact has submitted. Then using that data, whether it's the leads module or an inquiries module, pull that into campaigns and add them into an automated workflow there. So as a general rule with Zoho, you always want to get all your data into CRM like you're doing, and then push it from CRM into the other applications. It essentially just helps make sure that all that campaign data will actually then roll back into CRM under that leader contact record, and you'll have that full visibility and scoring if that's the use case that you're looking for.
All right. Monique also asked, I'm setting up a reactivation workflow in campaigns, and I have the following question regarding merge tags with data from CRM. How can I use an account field synchronization from CRM to campaigns as a merge tag in an email?
Yeah, so if you're setting up the new sync for contacts, up at the top of the page, you'll have kind of like contacts. I guess to do it reverse, it would be contacts, accounts, and deals. So you can actually flip into the accounts page and sync that data in on a per contact basis. So it's tricky terminology because it's coming from the account module in the CRM, but it's storing it in a campaign's contact. So it actually is one of the contact merge fields. When you add it to the syncing in the integration settings, it should automatically create a custom contact field for you just natively through that interface. And then once you kind of set it up to sync that way, you should just be able to merge it directly into any of your outgoing emails.
Alrighty, and then Carl Hines asks, hello, we are extensively using Zoho WorkDrive. However, I'm always concerned about data protection. I would like to have the data automatically saved backed up to a third party like AWS. Alternatively, download all the data with one click to an external drive. Do you have any idea how to do this? Yes, Carl. So Zoho has two applications. One is called WorkDrive Sync, and one is called WorkDrive TrueSync. I almost feel like they're backwards named here, but WorkDrive Sync will download all of your files from the web to your computer, and it will take up storage space on your computer. So that's what you're actually looking for. So if you mapped like a virtual drive of AWS to your computer, you actually could do the sync and drop it right into there. They do have another one called WorkDrive TrueSync, which creates a virtual drive of your WorkDrive account. So it shows up as a folder on your desktop, but the files aren't actually there. You'll see them, and then when you click on them, it will open them. So what you want is the WorkDrive Sync application, and you can just do a search on that, Zoho WorkDrive Sync, and you will find the application you are looking for there. All right, Andrew Shields asks, hi all, newbie here. Our devs and project managers were having quite a bit of a debate yesterday about data validation. Can anyone shed some guidance on how Zoho validates data to avoid contact record duplication in apps across the platform integration, namely books, CRM, and inventory? Thanks heaps in advance. Gosh, Tyler, I wish we had better news here. It
Yeah,
just
so
doesn't
this
do it
is an
very
interesting
well.
one. So books and inventory, they basically work off of
Same.
like a shared database. So you're not going to have to worry about like duplicates getting generated in the sync between books and inventory. With CRM, it gets a little bit more tricky. So the books to CRM integration has a couple different options of how you can set it up. You can do kind of like accounts and contacts, just contacts, right? And kind of determine like what needs to map where. The reality is that it's an imperfect system in the sense that they're going to be looking for duplicate identification based on record names, not actually based on like IDs of synced records. So I wish I had better news. It's generally not a big problem, depending as long as you can control the input of the data, right? So what I mean by that is that if every single record is being created first in CRM or first in books and then synced to the other one, it's very unlikely that you're going to have much record duplication. But if you have, let's say, like two independent workflows where a team might add something to CRM, another team might be also working that same thing from a different perspective in books, now is where you're starting to have some of those risks where I put it into CRM as Zenatta, Brett puts it into books as Zenatta Consulting, there's no real connection there, and now you might have a duplicate record. So, I mean, that's going to happen in almost any system that's syncing between two different databases. So the trick is to keep the data clean is actually to manage the workflow of how the data gets in, right? And there's a lot of ways to do that. Having external forms that actually are adding the data where you're able to run functions that kind of search for matching records first is always a good way to kind of control that flow. But so it's not something that Zoho is going to just kind of automatically fix behind the scenes. They're not going to break anything unless you put bad data in. And so the biggest thing is just to control how the data is entering the system and try to make sure that you have clean workflows and consolidated workflows so that ideally everything is entering from the same side.
And you also see a lot of this with Zoho subscriptions as well, because there's really not a lot they can do there. If a person's
Subscriptions is
filling
a
out a
whole other
subscription.
bear. I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. It doesn't do any duplicate checking. It's
Yeah, but it's kind of,
doesn't
in their
start it.
defense, kind of hard, right? Because you can't, you could do something where it's doing a lookup and say, "Are you this company?" But what do
The
you got?
email
Maybe got some
address.
privacy issues there.
Email address
What's
is a
that?
pretty good one. Said email address would be a pretty good one if you're listening, Zoho
Email address would be,
subscription.
yeah. If it's got that, at least do a check on the email address. I know that would
That
be
would
good.
be that would surely be nice. Anyways, on to our next question
All
here.
right. So Ed says the items module. This is, I'm assuming the items module is CRM. You think he's in CRM or books here? CRM?
I think this is books. We're talking about charts of accounts.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The items module currently only allows one sales account to be selected. Our chart of accounts has two, retail sales and wholesale sales. This means that the items on every order that come through will automatically default to only one account. We can manually change the items on each invoice to other accounts, but this is extremely tedious. It's a longer question, part two. I'm trying to find a way using Deluge to update the sales account of the items in an order in Zoho inventory books as it flows through. The API lets you update warehouse ID to conditionally change the warehouse for each item, but we could not do the same with the account ID for different accounts in the chart of accounts. Is this even possible? Would anybody have a workaround that doesn't involve duplicating every single item?
So it's possible, but I don't even know that I'm going to recommend that you do what I'll say you could do here. This would be kind of a decision for you guys to make, but how I would approach this is I would take all my items, the default chart of account mapping for the sales, I would choose as like your standard sales account, right? And you'd have your standard sales price. Then what I would do is I would add custom fields to the item for like wholesale GL code and like wholesale item price that are just custom fields. Then what I would do is add a custom field onto your invoices that would default to sales, but you could flip it over to wholesale to identify like this invoice as a whole is a wholesale invoice. Then last but not least, when that invoice is either raised or paid, or whenever you want to actually make the determination, you could run a custom function that would look at all of the journal entries associated with that particular invoice, debit them back out if they're to sales, or remove them, basically, do the opposite of them inside of the standard sales account, and then make new journal entries into the wholesale account for each of the items that are sold and the price that they were sold at. It would get you to the same place in the end. You would have a lot of journal entries just kind of being created, like adjusting, decrease sales, increase wholesale, decrease sales, increase wholesale, as you kind of like are flipping those over. But that would be a way that you could do this without having to change each of the items. You would just need to basically set it up at the invoice level, and then in each of the item records, determine in a field what the wholesale chart of account GL code is and what the wholesale default price should be. So it's not a quick fix by any stretch of the imagination, but it's the only one that you could really do. And the alternative, right, is you create a wholesale and a standard sale version of each item, but now you're splitting
That's
your
to me,
inventory, right? And it's
that's the
like,
cleanest. That's almost the cleanest way to do it. I mean,
yeah,
it's
I mean,
still
and you can do
messy.
inventory adjustments between the two when you need to.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that would just
what I'm
be.
suggesting is like technically right at the end of the day, but you're just, I don't know. I don't know if it's kosher from an accounting perspective to have that many adjusting entries hitting your chart of accounts all the time.
Yeah, maybe John can chime in from the chat room. Let us know. I'm not sure. All right. And then Artie, hey Artie, how you doing? Do you know how to access recordings of the videos that Zoho presents? They did one recently on CRM Analytics, and I can't find it on their YouTube channel. Or should I just watch yours? Why, you should just watch ours. But if you go to the thing that Zoho does over in YouTube is they've got so many different channels. That's kind of the big problem there. They've got a channel for each and every. So you can go in, you can look at it might be in the Zoho one. They usually do post these things, but you can look in the Zoho one channel, you can
Usually,
look in the CRM.
not always.
Usually, I know, not always. But if you go over to their YouTube channels, you might have to go channel by channel. Of course, it should just be in the CRM channel or the Zoho one channel, because I don't think they have an analytics channel. So if you can't find it there, then it's not there. But honestly, you can watch ours, and I think you'll be good. And we're doing one next week that'll probably be pretty helpful for you as well. All right. Anything else? Looks like that's going to wrap it up. I think we should, we started with that fantastic animation. We must have spent thousands of dollars on that. Could we just see that one more time, Freddie? Oh,
Yeah, professional
yeah.
design firms. I mean, it was a whole process to put this
Oh, yeah.
absolute night together.
I was watching this on my phone this morning, and Tina's like, "What are you doing with your arm? What are you poking Tyler with there?" Sticking with that
I mean, I
coffee
guess
cup.
that is pretty much how I dance. That is, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how you got a video of me dancing to recreate this, but it is
So good.
accurate, I have to say.
So good. All right, here's to another 4 years, buddy. And with that, let's wrap up the show. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, head over to club.zenatta.com and drop us a line there. If you want to talk to Tyler or myself, head over to zenatta.com and go ahead and book a meeting with us.
As always, we'd love if you would follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We'll see you next Friday.
Taking us out with the smooth jazz. Man, 4 years goes quick, I'll tell you that.
That it does.
All right, everybody, have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks for dropping by, everyone.